Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you so much for tuning into one of our talks today. I'm so excited today to be joined by the fantastic MJ Rodriguez to talk all about the final season of Pose. And I wanted to start by talking about the idea of legacy when it comes to Blanca as a character, because it's something that she's been thinking about since the very beginning of the show. What is the legacy I'm going to leave behind? And it's influenced so many things about who she is as a mother. But in this
Mhm.
season, it really took it to that next level. And so I wanted to actually ask about how you started to really think about it in terms of how Blanca really spreads her roots and the way in which, going out in the final season, you really wanted to leave a little piece of Blanca in all of the other characters through their arcs and through their development, and how that
Mhm.
really informed the way that you were working with your castmates and figuring out a lot of those details.
Yes, so I would say, I mean, the main thing for me, even in the beginning of first season and second season, when it came to the legacy of Blanca, I wanted her legacy to be a human experience. Like I wanted people to see that this was a human being who walked through life and she took everything, she rolled with the punches, and yet and still she managed to persevere. She managed to succeed. And when third season came rolling in, she had gotten everything that she wanted. Blanca had really fought for the things that she wanted. And I always say this, but she received the fruits of her labor, right? Like her children were the fruits of the labor that she put into making sure that they could be the best that they could be, because she didn't have that. She didn't have a mom, and her father was not there either. Blanca was alone. The only mother that she had was Electra, and even then she took and made this she took what with what she had, made the decision on her own to flap her wings, leave, even though there was some turmoil between her and Electra, because a mother's always going to show some kind of feeling when her child is leaving the nest, honey, whether she's crying or she's angry. And Electra was angry. But I feel like the whole arc of Blanca was to make sure that her kids or whoever came into her life, right? And it just so happened to be her wonderful kids. She was going to do right by them so that they can carry on and say that this is what my mother instilled in me. So I want it to be instilled in you so that you can carry on this for a lifetime and that the bond or the cycle will never be broken of love. Blanca wanted her legacy to be rooted in love and heart and joy and hard work, because she's a hard worker, and also in a fight she fought hard. And I think that's one of the reasons why she got one of her biggest accolades even in the ballroom scene and receiving that award. That was her legacy. She received a piece of her legacy right there. And now you see her at the very end of the movie, excuse me, not the movie, it's like a movie. You see her at the end of the series walking down the street as the lights shine down her, as her shadow is following her right behind her. That was what she wanted. She wanted to be able to leave a mark, walk and live her life, and know that her mark was left. So I think her legacy was somewhat fulfilled. Not somewhat, completely actually. Excuse me.
Absolutely. And you're bringing up ballroom moments there, and we'd be remiss not to talk about ballroom scenes in the show because they're
Right.
so beautiful and so special, and they have such an ability to tell such intimate stories in such a
Mhm.
large setting. And when you have all the shows, when Blanca's in her home with her children, those scenes are really intimate in a different way. But in a ballroom, there's the unique aspect that you're having to bring as a performer, where you're performing to the very depths of that room, to every single background and supporting artist who's in that room. You are performing for that person in the rafters, and at the same
Mhm.
time you're giving this performance to the camera right in front of you. And so what are the unique aspects of those scenes and how they come together and how you capture all the different layers in your performance in those moments?
I mean, there were so many different types of ballroom scenes, and I'll pick two. I'll pick the one where Blanca walks her first ball, and then the last episode where Blanca and Pretel do their like final performance together. The first moment where Blanca walks her first ball, as Michaela, I had to make sure, one, I stepped into these younger feet. Like this was a 20 some odd year old girl who didn't have everything that she needed. She had a hand me down dress. She was very much Cinderella in the beginning stages. And, at that time, it reminded me so much of when I walked my first ball when I was younger. And I mean, it was nothing compared to that, because I think my ball was the ball that I attended was much sweeter. But I still got chopped. But um, I feel like in those moments, I try my best to just receive all the energy from the individuals that are around me. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about me, it's about us, and it's about what we pour into each other, and how I, as a person who is leading, make sure that I'm the example for the people that are around me, so that we can all do the collective work together. And sometimes that consisted of the background, the other cast members, delving into their characters and being harsh, being shady, channeling all these different types of traits and personality archetypes that would benefit Blanca in the moment, so that she can actually delve into her character. Or instance when, like, seventh episode of third season, where there's nothing but love and joy and just illumination over these two, because not only did they receive the best news of their life, that there's a possible treatment for HIV and AIDS, but they're also healthier and they feel healthier. And this is a moment where the love from that community is just being shed around them. That's what the ballroom scene is naturally. So it was kind of easy. And a lot of people who are a part of the LGBTQAI community and the ballroom scene were in these scenes. So it's kind of a blessing that it was easy to feed off of them. But there were moments where I was just like, this is something that Michaela would not do in this scene. This is something that Blanca has to do. So what are you going to do, MJ? Are you going to really dig deep down in the depths of you to really be the vessel for Blanca? Or are you going to slip up and actually let Michaela slip through? Can't let Michaela slip through. So there were a lot of hard times for me, but I'm glad that I uplifted myself, that I had my castmates that uplifted me in moments. I had background that uplifted me. It was like a cycle of upliftment, back and forth, back and forth. And that's what made it so easy within the space. Certain spaces aren't like that, especially when it's dealing with a different type of energy. And you touched on something so important when it comes to Pose and the dichotomy between the ballroom scene and just living a regular, normal day-to-day life as a woman who just so happens to be trans, and she's also part of another minority with it, which is being Latina and African American. Like, those were the things that I was just like, wow, these are this is where I have to really delve in and show how human this individual is and what she did in her time. So yeah, those were the things that I had to really delve with. And it was challenging, but I loved the challenge, honey. And Ryan Murphy and Steven, they made me feel so comfortable. I've worked with a good amount of directors in my life, and I loved each and every last one of them. But this experience alone, with it being so surrounded by LGBTQAI people of color, it just felt so safe when I was in that space. And I guess that was why it became so much easier when I let Blanca come into the vessel of my body and do what I needed to do.
Yeah.
I
And
talk
you were
so much.
bringing
Oh my God.
No, you talk so beautifully about it though, and it's why those scenes are so special, and so you remember viscerally every single one of them in your performance, and I love that you were bringing up the storyline this season where Blanca and Prey have the opportunity to get into a medical trial, because for Blanca, she, going back to that what we were talking about before with legacy, she's always been thinking about her legacy, and she's always moving her life forward and thinking about pulling everybody alongside with her. But at the end of the day, there at the back of her mind, it's always felt like there is that idea of there's a finite amount of time that I have to achieve all of this. And
Mm-hmm.
to have that shift in a character where all of a sudden they have that opportunity to think about their future in a completely different way, I loved how you approached that. And so I wanted to ask you about how you really wanted to channel that into Blanca, and a lot of the details that you found in her as a character, having this new opportunity again to think about her future as something that was genuinely long term in a different way that she hasn't been able to for so long.
It's like the writings on the pages are what really actually influenced me to do the right thing by Blanca and make sure that I did my job as an actress to show how confident she was in moving forward in her life with the work that she's done, with the things that she's received. With Blanca and her journey, as far as the trials, and even her coming to a point where she could have also possibly died, I think those were the mountains that she had to climb. And I wouldn't be doing any justice to it if I didn't bring just a piece of myself to it. Like I feel like that would be so selfish of me not to bring myself to it. And also, if I were to consume myself in it, that's selfish. And if I were to not bring myself into it either, that's quite selfish too. I related to Blanca so much, and there were moments where I was like, I have to do this for me too. Like, I have to Blanca is speaking not only to the people who are in this world, but she's speaking to the people that are in real life too, and not just the masses around the world, but individuals like me, the actress themselves, the actress herself. So I, once she started speaking to me, I was just like, I have to do this. This is inspirational, and I gotta serve her right. Like, she's speaking completely off the pages into my soul. If I don't do this, then what's the point of actually even doing the show if I don't really give what I need to give for her? Because if I wasn't doing this for her, then that means the women who were behind me, the ancestors who had passed away, who were doing the same thing as Blanca, like the Angie extravaganzas and the Octavia St. Laurents, and like the even the girls who are coming up now, like Leomi Mizrahi and Jack Mizrahi's and all of these, and I would be doing an injustice if I didn't insert some of myself. So I had to insert certain pieces of my life in those moments where it was highlights, even though it was trying. When Blanca is on the bed, almost dying, or even Pray Tell in the last episode where he is almost near his death and he gets this trial and it succeeds. And Blanca's right there next beside him. There was a point where Michaela was like, all right, this is the moment where you have to both live for Blanca and live for yourself. Because not only are we going through a time like this where we're dealing with COVID-19 and we're seeing this something, it's not similar to HIV and AIDS because that was a very serious time, but something very close to it. And you watching people who you love pass away. I had to make sure I gave that to the character of Pray Tell. And I couldn't just do it by completely not giving myself, so I think that was the main thing. I had to give a piece of myself, and there were things that I felt in me that I was like, I'm going through this, I'm experiencing this at this very moment. I'm not subject to HIV and AIDS, but I'm still watching it around me and seeing people die from another virus that we're calling COVID-19, and it's now a worldwide pandemic as well. So it's just like I would be totally selfish if I didn't do that for these characters and for the people who were watching.
Yeah. And speaking of the relationship between Blanca and Pray Tell, it's been the heart of so many moments in the show. And I think that's because of the intimacy that the two of you bring into those performances. And you really shaped Blanca as this character who was the one person that Pray would be truly himself around and would really open up to. And how do you feel that you and Billy Porter kind of evolved your style in working together and the intimacy that you had as scene partners? So when you were working on scenes towards the end of the show, kind of how did that look really different from when you first sat down in a room together and thought about who these characters were in relation to each other? Because the reason that we feel his loss is because of everything that Billy does, but also because of this relationship and the dynamic with Blanca.
Right. Well, one, Billy is an amazing actor. That's just number one. And it was great to actually finally get a chance to work with him. Like, I remember when I was 19 years old and he was associate director of Rent when I was doing Rent, and I was receiving notes from him. And now I'm able to actually work with him and be alongside him in the show. So that was just astounding to me. But also, we had already built a rapport, we had already built a relationship, and we had also been working actors for a while. Obviously, Billy's been in the game for 35 years. I'll never ever top that. But like, we also were just working hard, so we knew what we had to bring to the table for these characters, and I think it just automatically happened when we came into the room. I remember seeing him at the second testing, and he said, "Girl, what are you doing here?" I said, "I'm trying to get this part, boo." He said, "Well, I'm trying to get the part too. Hopefully I'll see you there." I was like, "You will, you surely will." He was like, "You're right." Well, at that time, he was like, "You're right, bitch." And I was like, "Thank you, Billy. I'll see you soon." And it was just, I knew once I saw him there, and if there was a possibility that we were both to book it together, it was going to be set in stone right when it happened. And when first season happened, it was like magic. And as time went on, when we were doing second season and all the way into third season, it just got so, it was, for me, it was extremely emotional because we've been on this journey for 4 years together as Billy Porter and Michaela J. Rodriguez. And also delving into these characters of Blanca and Pray Tell, who are not that far. I'm actually quite different from Blanca. But I would say Billy's not that far from Pray Tell. He's the life of the party. He's happy. He's jovial, And I was just like, this is a great space to be in with him. And not to mention, he feels and he feels like family, and that's what family was supposed to be. That's what supposed to be emitted through the screens. Like people were supposed to see the strength between him and Blanca, the matriarch and the monarch of the houses of Pose. You know, that's how it was, and I'm just glad I got to do it with him.
Yeah. And when it came to filming the scene where Blanca hears about Prey's passing, one of the things that the show has done is it's honored every single character death in such unique and special ways that really speak to that character and all of their relationship dynamics. And that moment where we see Blanca hear about Prey Tell is
Mm.
just gut wrenching because of everything that they've meant. And you really found a way to make that feel different and new and just completely guttural in the moment. And what was the process of really finding your performance for a scene like that and finding what the right emotional response was that was really going to elicit that?
You know, I had to take, I mean, in that moment specifically, I remember me having to take a couple of moments to, you know, it's respectfully, but telling everyone, look, I just may need a little bit of time to really set myself into this scene because, you know, it's just you have to really get yourself there, and you can't really have any distractions at that moment. And it's no disrespect to anyone, you know, it's just the process as an actor and what you have to do for the character. You're only the vessel, you know what I mean? And that's a beautiful thing to be, but you are only the vessel. These characters are already living in a world that we're not a part of, so we have to try to bring them to life. And in that moment, I needed to make sure that I brought her to full life and people know how important Prey was to her and how both of them moved really as a unit together. And in that moment, that's what I had to do. And most times, you know, when running up there, there was a moment where I wasn't going to be on the ground. I wasn't going to fall on the ground, but it naturally happened. It naturally was in me to do that because most times when you get news, sometimes you can't stand up straight. Sometimes you are weak at the knees and you're quivering and there's a loss of appetite and you're like, what? Especially when it's your brother or somebody who's been a father figure. So I take a lot of time. And there were moments where I had to go back and forth into the green room and say, you know what, guys, can I just take a moment? We did a couple of takes too. And when I say a couple, we did at least about 5 takes of that just to get them from different angles too. But that can also be strenuous and stressful. I'll tell you one thing though, it definitely added to the scene. And I used everything that I could to really do justice to the transition of Pray Tell, you know, the life transition of Pray Tell. If I didn't do that justice, then no one would have seen how important his death was, not only in the community, but to Blanca.
And as much as there's moments like that, which just feel so impactful in that particular way, the show also really beautifully has all these incredibly touching and emotional moments that come from the small details. And one of the moments was when Blanca's sitting with Prey's mother and she gives her the locket and then she
Ugh.
puts the locket onto Blanca. I mean, I was definitely a puddle many times, and that was one of them. And,
Mhm.
in working on the show, are a lot of those moments always coming from the scripts, or how do you all work to make sure that you're always thinking about the minute aspects of a scene and the small details that can have such strong impacts to that degree?
I think the most important thing is when Stephen Canals or when Janet or even Ryan, they come into the room and they set the tone. Most of the times they give us like a good breakdown of like, okay, this is what's happening in the moment. Even though we've read the script and we have our notes, you know, as actors and actresses, we have our notes already, you know, that's what we do naturally. But like, it's always good to have the direction from the director and how it's supposed to lead in, where Blanca's coming in at the moment, where Angel is sitting at the moment. Like those set up the scene so much better so that when we're in the moment, we don't have to think. It's just in our minds already. You know, it's set and everything. So I think most of that is solely based on the directors, the writers, and the collective, you know, village of the team and how they set it up. Then it's our job to just make sure that we execute. And it's the best when you're working with Marie on like how do you get a chance to like Maria, like she's an iconic actress, but it's always a blessing when you have that comfortability and you have that safe space with an actress who's been in the business for so long and who's able to just give you what you need. Like That's what teamwork is, when someone is able to give you what you need in the scene and you can give it right back to them, and it becomes magic at that moment because you're both doing it. You're both doing it together, and it's not even about Maria or Michaela. It's about Blanca and Pray Tell's mother, and the story that happened before, when what he went through, and her not even knowing about Blanca until Pray Tell says something about her. That's how important it is. Like, I think those are the key components to making a scene work, and also listening. Listening is key.
Yeah. And I love that it sounds like this isn't a show where it took 2 or 3 seasons to be given that autonomy and that freedom to have such a voice for Blanca and to be able to come in with your notes and to be able to give details of who she was. And, looking back even at the very beginning, but also stemming through to this season, what are some of the ways and some of the spaces that you've always really advocated for certain details when it comes to Blanca?
You know, there were certain moments where I would say, I don't know if Blanca is feeling this at this moment, and Stephen would be like, you know what? Right, right. You know what? I understand that. Or there would be moments where Stephen would come up to me and, he would say, I think in this moment, Blanca isn't bawling her eyes out, but instead the silence of her expression is what's going to get it. And there were moments where I like felt the same exact way too. And we were right on the same page. I think the communication was key. And that's the best part when you're on a set together in a production. When there's great communication, the work just comes out like how it needs to come out. So the communication through each and every last one of us on that set was pretty stellar. And being that it was so stellar, I was able to autonomously give, my opinion on a certain scene. Or they sometimes didn't have to direct me on a certain scene because they were like, okay, she's doing it like how she needs to. Or Ryan Murphy would come in at certain points, it would be something very specific, which I respected so much because it lends itself to the scene when people are watching it. He would say, you just have to do it. You have to change it just this much. Or when you come into the door, make sure that you slam the door because there's a reasoning behind her slamming the door. She just came from the hospital and she's rushing down the hallway. Like, sometimes I needed those things because in the moment I snap into Blanca, and sometimes I don't think about that. I'll slam the door, but not rush down the hallway. I'll maybe pace, and it's the small things that so anyways, communication was key, and the communication on that show when it came to the work and when we were on the set itself, spectacular.
Yeah. And in terms of the details as well, when it comes to the costumes, the details are so incredible in what they capture and what they tell. Looking at the fact that Blanca's wearing an outfit that Pray Tell made during Angel and Poppy's wedding, and that gives so many layers of emotion to an outfit that she's wearing, but also really using it to step through different spaces and time as well. And so how has the relationship with the costume department really helped you in finding a lot of moments in Blanca as well, in really working with them collaboratively and then using the details that they're bringing in to really read a lot of moments in a scene as well?
Well, Lou Ellerich, she was on for the first and second season. And then Lou has an amazing woman that she also put in position. Her name is Analuska. Both of them are sickening. And they were always open to collaboration and being creative together when it came to building the characters and how they looked. So I think those were the puzzle pieces that we always needed. The costumes are the puzzle pieces that can complete it all. It's the costume, it's the makeup, and it's the hair. And then you have the actor who, brings another piece of that puzzle together. And we were just always open. Analuska, even in the moment of us fitting for that dress that Pray Tell created for Blanca, she was like, well, how do you feel about this? Do you feel like it should be tighter around the waist? What are you feeling? How do you feel Blanca would feel in this moment? And I would say, I think Blanca is feeling sexy. I think she's feeling sophisticated. And I think she's also feeling classy. So yeah, I think it should be tight around the waist. But, like, you've made it long. It's a wedding, so it should be long. It shouldn't be anything that's above the knees. Like, we would have in-depth conversations like that. There were times where she would say, do you want to wear this jacket? Roll it up, because I know that's what Blanca would do. And I was like, yeah, Blanca definitely rolls her sleeves up. Whereas Michaela's like, I'm not rolling my sleeves up, girl, unless it's real, real hot, But we were very communicative in that way. We collaborated a lot. And there were sometimes I didn't say a word. I just trusted. Most of the time I just trusted, because they were amazing stylists and they were amazing costume designers as well. As you saw, like Electra looks stunning in every single last thing that she put on.
And then one of the scenes I also wanted to talk about is the scene at the very end of the show when you have Blanca leaving the ballroom behind. She's got her award with her and she's being asked, by those young kids, we haven't won anything. What's the point in continuing? What's the point in going? And she's really just channeling Prey in those moments. And, we have Billy Porter's performance, but also in your delivery, you're really channeling everything that other people and other mentors have instilled in her. And so wanted to ask about the voice that you really wanted Blanca to have in that particular moment to capture the essence of all of that.
I wanted Blanca to have this very mature, sure, self-assured, ambitious, but sturdy voice. She had, at this point, it's 1996, she had run the gamut of being in the ballroom scene as a baby. And when I say baby, you know what I mean? Like, as a girl who's coming up and learning about it, whether she's 19 or not, that's a child, and coming to a 36-year-old woman who's has children that have graduated, literally. One is in Paris, one is a model, one is a manager. The mother of the House of Abundance slash Evangelista is a business owner. Like, I wanted that to be the voice of Blanca. She made a lot of these things happen due to the love that she instituted in each and every last one of them. And if she had that voice, then it was going to definitely be influential to the people who were just coming in. And also, I mean, even listening to those moments to her words, it ignited something in me too when I was in those scenes. It didn't matter how many times I shot it, it just landed on me so profoundly because it's very crucial to what we deal with every single day when we feel like we're beaten. There's got to be someone or a mentor out there that lifts us up. And I was just like, oh, child, I wish I had this. I wish I had me a Blanca in my life. Shit, I mean, she was in my life, but Lord, I wish she was right in front of me telling me these things too, because I would feel like I could take on the world. And that's what I wanted her to be for those characters in that moment. Because when she was that for those characters, anyone who was watching on the television screen was going to literally receive those words. And it wasn't just Blanca, it was Preytel and the ancestors even before Preytel who and probably instilled it in Preytel, like a cycle, positive cycle love message to anyone who felt like they were, being put down. Never let anyone tell you that you don't know. You're the one who determines your life. So yeah.
Yeah. And I've heard you talk recently about how it's really important to you to kind of put your stamp on the creative industry and on the world with a lot of the work that you're doing and the projects that you're really looking towards following Pose. And you've got some really fantastic things coming up, including with Maya Rudolph, and you just recently released Something to Say, your single,
Yes.
which is such a great piece, and the video is really fantastic. And kind of going back to the very beginning of the conversation where we were talking about the idea of legacy with Blanca, how do
Mm-hmm.
you then think about that in terms of yourself as an artist and kind of the legacy that you really want to be working on building for yourself as a creative storyteller in this industry?
I'm hoping I can tell the stories of my life creatively through my music, most importantly, because I know that's an extremely powerful tool. It's been a powerful tool for me ever since I was a baby. And I know that it's a powerful tool for a lot of these individuals out here, no matter if they're young or old. So I wanted my music, more importantly, to make sure that it landed on the hearts of people all around the world, even the people who don't believe in me or the people that don't believe how I identify, because there are a lot of them. And it's funny, I read comments I probably shouldn't, but it makes me stronger when I do. And I see a lot of the hurt that people throw without education or out without wanting it. They don't want it either. They're just like, I'm gonna stay here and I'm not gonna abide by that. And it's stuff like that fuels me even more to be a beacon, to be the example of what love looks like when you don't pay attention to that. Or if you see it and you're like, well, I'm going to distance myself from that. I'm going to disengage from that. And I'm going to keep on the path of what I'm being told from the universe, which is to be the example and show. And that's simply from what Ms. Blanca has told me and the implements of what my mother has taught me through Blanca, because I put a lot of Blanca, a lot of my mother into Blanca as well. And just to keep pushing forward. That's what I wanted my music to do. And I'm so glad that I had strong Black men like Birdie White, who is the bass player of Earth, Wind, and Fire, Neil Pogue, who is a NAMI excuse me, a Grammy winning like producer, and John Paris, who is Grammy winning as well, also a drummer, also a songwriter. I had strong Black men around me to influence and show me that now I have nothing to even worry about like my own anymore, because my own love me and they see me. And for a long time I had this idea of like, people in my community, especially African American men, were not willing to understand me as a trans woman. But now that door is even being broken down. So if that door is being broken down, then there's other doors that I got to break down. And that's what I want my legacy to be. I want my children, when they're here, when I'm 50 years old, to say, Mommy, you did a great job. And I'm like, oh, you really think so, baby? And they're like, yeah, you did a good job. And I love you. And, I want that. That's what I want my legacy to be. I don't have children. Blanca did. I had a mother and a father in my life, and two fathers in my life, added on pluses of the LGBTQAI community. Blanca did not have that, but Blanca still succeeded and prevailed. I want that with what I have already. Blanca had nothing, and yet and still she won. And that's what I want. That I want to keep winning. And I don't mean winning in the ways of awards and everything. Like, they're beautiful. I'd be thankful if I got an Emmy in my hand within the next couple of weeks. But if it does not happen, that doesn't mean I lost. Winning is when you win the hearts of people and you change their minds. That's what I want my legacy to be. Like, that's what I want people to see when they see me on a poster. Like, she's happy, she's good, she loves.
Yeah. I mean, I think like the legacy that you've already created with your work on the show and what you did with that character, it's such an incredibly phenomenal performance that you've given us over these 3 seasons. And I'm so excited for all the stories that you're going to continue to create for all of us and all of your music as well. And
So
thank you so much, MJ.